Hi, I'm Melita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I will be talking about my April wrap-up. April was a bit chaotic, to say the least. It felt like it took forever to get through the month, and yet I also didn't feel like I had enough time to do anything. It's just also just been a lot because we had student protests, support of Palestine, to have our university divest any investments away from Israel. And it was just a lot, and our university reacted interestingly. So I've been working from home for the last couple of weeks, as have most of everybody, and will be working from home for the next couple of weeks. So let's just go ahead and talk about the books from April. I did read 8 books, which is actually below my soft goal. If you don't know, every month I kind of have a soft goal of how many books I would like to read. Obviously, I would like it to be 10 because that's how many Pokemon cards tend to be in a pack when I do my TBRs for the month. However, TBR picks tend to be guidelines, not like set in stone, because I'm ultimately a mood reader. But ultimately, I still have a soft goal of how many books I would like to read for the month, and I didn't meet that. It was 10. 8 books. I'm still happy with that. I'm still happy with the fact that I got 8 books done, all things considering. So with that, 8 books, 2,684 pages read, and 70.89 hours listened to. I had 3 fantasy, 1 historical, 2 romance, 1 sci-fi, and 1 thriller. For formatting, I had 7 novels and 1 novella, 6 audiobooks and 2 physical. Acquired from the most was from Libro at 4 books. And for audience, I have 7 adult, 1 YA. And then for author and publication, I have 3 books that were by authors that were new to me, and 5 books from authors I've read from before. This is something that I did look at, and it was always that the new to me was a major portion of the stats, more than the authors I've read from before. But as if I look from January to April, it's slowly the gap is getting smaller, and April we finally surpassed that. My read before authors are over my new to me authors, which is really cool in my opinion. It was something that I remember thinking would be really cool since finding like Kayla from Books and Lala, and other booktubers when I first started getting into booktube, of like how cool would it be to be able to go, oh, I've read from this author several times before, or to be able to have so many books from certain authors that I've read from before. It was like a cool goal, and that's one of my goals for this year, was to read more authors that I've read from before, and so far it's working out really well, and I'm really excited. So for publication, I have 1 independently published book and 7 that were traditionally published, and from those traditionally published, it looks like the highest amount came from Penguin Random House at 3, from either Penguin Random House or their imprints. And then I've read 1 from a series and 7 that were standalone. And then in terms of publishing year, it looks like I have 1 from 2007, 1 from 2018, 1 from 2021, 3 from 2023, and 2 from 2024. And then in terms of where these books took place, I have 4 in the United States, but on my map that I'm showing you, I have like 5, and that's because there were a couple that kind of traveled. So we spent some time in one place and then some time in another place. So yeah, it looks like we were mostly in the upper northeast of the United States, and then kind of traveled into the south and southwest. But we also traveled to the United Kingdom as well as South Africa, which is pretty cool. I'm always excited when I can fill out other parts of the map, but I've kind of just accepted that the United States is probably where I'm going to spend a majority of the time. And then in terms of rating breakdowns, I have 0 1 star, 0 2 star, 1 2.5 star, 3 3 stars, 0 4 stars, 1 4.5 star, 2 5 stars, and 1 that I haven't rated. I will say that I did DNF 1 book this month, which is not a part of my stats because I don't tend to count it unless I finished it. That's just how I do it. I know others do it differently, but because it's not finished for me, it doesn't belong in my finished stats. So let's go ahead and talk about that DNF real quick, and that is The Majesties by Tiffany Zhao. This one was a 24 of 2024 pick. It was randomly picked for me. I do use a random number generator to kind of randomly pick books that I have on my Want to Read Goodreads TBR. And so this one, we are following a young woman who wakes up in a hospital after a basically mass killing of her family, a mass poisoning of sorts. She's the only one that survived, and it turns out that her sister was the one that caused it. And so our main character is kind of looking through the events of their life to figure out what led up to her committing this act. And then it sounded really cool and it sounded really interesting. However, I kept having a hard time, started it and stopped it so many times. What I had a hard time with was how many family members I had to keep track of, or felt like I had to keep track of, as well as I just wasn't connecting with our main character. I think I made it to like 30-40% of the way through the book before I was like, you know what, I don't want to have to force myself to read this anymore. I really don't want to DNF books that are on my 24 of 2024 just to give them a shot, but I'm also not going to force myself to read something that I really am not excited to read anymore, just because that's an easy way into a slump. So that was that decision. So yeah, unfortunately I will not be finishing this book for my 24 of 2024, and it gets an X through it. Let's go ahead and get into the books I did read for the month of April. And that first book is Empire of Ivory by Naomi Novik. This is the fourth book in the Temeraire series, a series that I started last year in 2023, and it is a historical fantasy basically set in the Napoleonic era wars, but with dragons. So we're following Captain William Lawrence, who was a captain in the British Royal Navy when he overtakes a French frigate. This frigate has a dragon egg on it, and is up to them to bring it back to Britain. However, the dragon egg ends up hatching before they get there, and so then they have to tame or have to harness the dragon before it goes feral. So Captain William Lawrence is able to harness this dragon, and so therefore he is then the dragon's rider. So Lawrence names the dragon Temeraire, and the whole series is essentially following William Lawrence and Temeraire as they navigate being in the British Royal Air Force and fighting a war against Napoleon, as well as going to other areas of the world and seeing how other cultures treat their dragons and meeting other dragons. And it's been really cool and really fun. I had a hard time getting back into the fourth book for the longest time because the third book was a little slow, which I was warned about, and I did rate it a little lower than the first two, which I gave 5 stars. So I think that was why I had a bit of trouble getting into the fourth book, because it does continue on from where the third book left off, and so I was kind of worried it was going to be as slow, but it really, once you got into it, it really wasn't. And I was really excited to see other elements that have happened within the Napoleonic era be introduced into this book. So it's been really entertaining and I've been really enjoying it, so I'm hoping to get back into this series. So I rated Empire of Ivory 5 stars because it was just so exciting. And it's really cool that I'm seeing other booktubers reading the series as well at this point. My coworker put this on my radar, and they no longer work with me and they no longer live in the area, but I've been keeping in touch with them through Discord as I continue reading this, which has been keeping us connected. But seeing that like Erin from Booked and Busy is also reading this series is really exciting. I'm interested to see what others think about this book series as well. Next, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is Emily Henry's newest release, and I was able to get this through an advanced listener's copy through Lero FM, which I have my affiliate link down below if you ever want to check them out. I highly suggest it. No, this is not sponsored. I wish it was. I just really like their service. Basically, the affiliate link, it just makes it so that if you are a member for over a month, I get free credit. But it essentially works the same as Audible. You pay $14.99 a month, but instead of lining Amazon's pockets, Libro works with bookshop.org, and part of their proceeds go to independent bookstores. So, something to think about. But Funny Story by Emily Henry, we are following Daphne, who is engaged to Pete. She moved to Michigan for Pete, and as like a couple months before their planned wedding, Pete ends up announcing that he is in love with his childhood best friend Petra. Pete kicks Daphne out of their house, which is technically Pete's, and so Daphne ends up moving in with someone that is probably the only person that understands what she's going through, and that's Petra's ex, Miles. Out of like spite, after they both receive RSVPs to Petra and Pete's wedding, Daphne ends up telling a lie, saying that her and Miles will be coming because they've been dating. Yeah. And so things ensue. I enjoyed this book overall, but I will say it was kind of a downer. So it kind of leans into the whole, it kind of advertises itself as a fake dating type thing, and that's not really the case. However, there is this countdown that Daphne has, that like, because she has her dream job in Michigan. She's a children's librarian, but she doesn't want to be in Michigan because it's ultimately like Pete's hometown. So she feels really weird and she wants to leave. So she's giving herself a countdown after a big event that the library is hosting. And Miles is trying to teach her that Michigan is for anybody, and show her his favorite parts of Michigan, which is really sweet. So I really enjoyed like the food aspects and the wine aspects, like the definitions. I also enjoy the fact that Daphne ends up making an adult friend. Because that's something hard to navigate. It was something that I remember too, was like Happy Place was very much like how to navigate your relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic, as you pivot in life. And this one is more of how to navigate relationships and friendships after a breakup of sorts. Like, I don't know. I don't want to give away either one. That probably doesn't make sense. It probably just sounds like nonsense. But basically, Daphne is broken up with, and she has to learn how to make friends. And she really doesn't know who she is without Pete. And that's something that is talked about, and that's something that I liked about the discussions in here, is like how to be by yourself and how to make friends by yourself. I really liked Ashley as a friend in here, and I really enjoyed, I think it could have been cool if Miles' sister was a potential friend. Like, I know she kind of was, but she was more like Miles' little sister. So I think they could have navigated that more. I also think that there was kind of insta-lovey in a way for me. Like, there could have been a little bit more pining. There was like sexual tension, but that was like, there could have been more pining. So so in terms of the Emily Henry lineup, it still falls for me as Happy Place as the top. Second, it's probably a tie between Book Lovers and Funny Story, and then People We Meet on Vacation, and then at the very bottom down here is Beach Read. Next, I read another romance, and that was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This one I received through Libby. It was available through my library. And this one we are following Elsie Hanaway, who is a theoretical physicist, is an adjunct professor. So she is kind of like having to grade labs and teach thermodynamics in hopes of landing tenure. She's struggling financially as well as healthcare wise. She has a chronic illness. Ultimately, to subsidize that, she is like a for-hire girlfriend through this app. And so with one of her clients, he takes her to a family event, and it's not the first time he's done this, and it's typically something that they don't permit, but she's becoming friends with this client, but she's starting to get nervous as well because her brother seems to see right through her, because Elsie very much molds herself to be whatever people need her to be, not necessarily what she wants to be. But that's how she's gone through life, and she's enjoyed it so far. But Jack, the brother, sees right through her. So after that event, she's going straight into another event where she is interviewing from an MIT position, except he turns out to be on this interview board but Jack Smith, the brother that saw right through her. And so now he's questioning everything about her, because she of course gave fake information for these family events. And so now she has to convince Jack that no, she's actually a theoretical physicist, that no, she's not taking advantage of his brother, without outing his brother. So it was an interesting book. I liked some of the conversations in here, particularly regarding chronic illness, women in the STEM field, which seems to be a common theme throughout all of Ali Hazelwood's work. I didn't love the love hypothesis like whatsoever, and I enjoyed the first 2 books in the feminist novella series, did not like the third one. So I've been trying to navigate if I like Ali Hazelwood's writing or not. This one seemed to kind of fall in the middle in that I enjoyed the discussions that were in here, particularly like I cried when Elsie cried when yelling at Jack, saying that he would not understand as a cis white man in the STEM field how it feels to be a chronically ill woman in the STEM field. So, and there were other elements too that I really liked in terms of discussion, in terms of molding yourself to whatever other people need to see you as opposed to molding yourself to what you want, as well as making decisions for other people without their knowledge, thinking that you're acting in their safety but not even giving them the choice. So I thought those were very good discussions, but I also had issue with Elsie herself. I did not connect with her as a main character. I get that not a lot of people need to enjoy a book. I kind of do. And she in particular was a little annoying to me. It felt like for the most of the book, it felt like she was annoying to me. She took too long to realize certain things. I also didn't like the way this book navigated safe sex. Like, if you're gonna put safe sex in there, then put it in there fully. Don't just joke around that, oh, I'm like, no need to wear a condom unless you have lice, and have the characters say like condoms aren't going to prevent you from getting genital lice, but then not go into safe sex practices, particularly when it came to her using the bathroom after having sex or doing what they did all night and then not having her go to the bathroom. No, I'm sorry. You either put in the safe sex things to do, or you don't put them in at all. That's just my opinion. I don't know. It bugged the heck out of me that she didn't use the bathroom after all the things that they did, because all I could think of was how bad that UTI was going to be come morning. I get that that's not sexy. I don't care. That took me out of the sexy moments, because I'm like, you didn't what now? That's my feelings on that. So I rated this 3 stars, so it kind of fell in the middle. I'm still curious about other Ali Hazelwood works, but right now she's still on the fence for me. Next, I read a book that I didn't think I would ever finish, which is weird because it's less than 300 pages, but that is Carbon Sovereignty, Coal Development and Energy Transition in the Navajo Nation by Andrew Curley. This is a nonfiction about what I just said. Basically, this is like an anthropological look at carbon sovereignty, what carbon sovereignty means, what it means for tribes, and basically the issues tribes have in terms of navigating carbon sovereignty, particularly with the barriers that federal government put in place versus state government puts into place versus corporations that want to just utilize and extract resources from tribal lands. So, and the choices they kind of pigeonhole these tribes into making to try to keep that sovereignty but earn money, but things. It's really complicated, and basically, like, I tabbed this up for the first half, and basically all the purple marks are the ones I need to look up, and all the pink ones are like, this is interesting, I should look this up, but I understand where you're going with it. So, and basically, that's when I was basically like getting through the book. I was taking my time with it, and then this later half was just me like trying to get through it to make sure that I finished it. This was for a book circle that we had at our university. Our Native American Studies department started this book circle to kind of encourage faculty and staff on campus to decolonize their mindset by reading Indigenous books. And so this one was this semester's pick. This is my first book circle that I've been to, but I've read other of their picks. Other picks included Fresh Banana Leaves by Jessica Hernandez and Raining Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it's usually really cool because they get the authors to come speak for the university. So Andrew Curley did come to the university and he signed my book, and he talked about the Navajo Nation and their current practices, like how their coal mining is essentially like a dying industry, right? So now where they used to have not coal mining but was it a power plant? They have solar, but there's still issue with that because you're still extracting to get the solar panels from somewhere, right? It may not be directly from you, but it's from somewhere else. And there have been issues in terms of families on the Navajo reservation that basically want access to that land for their sheep herds. So, because that was their ancestral right. So there's that navigation, and it was really interesting reading this book and being able to compare it to things that have happened here locally, whether it was dams that are destroying our rivers, the timber industry, the cannabis industry, or even one that isn't here yet but wants to be, and that's the wind industry. And that one particularly is interesting because it's something that we're currently navigating as California and the United States try to put a wind farm off our coast, and almost all the tribes in the area have written letters saying they don't want it because there's not enough evidence that it won't hurt marine ecology, and marine life, but also that they need better practices in terms of working with tribes, because this already happened on the East Coast and tribes were only worked with for like the last little bit of the project, and so they really didn't get any input in. So yeah, that was a lot. I didn't rate this because ultimately there's still so much I don't understand and still so much I can learn. I will say that accessibility wise, this is very academic, so it's not as accessible as I would have liked it to be. It very much felt like I couldn't have anything distracting me. I couldn't have anybody really doing much of anything around me. I had to have my headphones on. I had to have music on that didn't have any lyrics. I basically just listened to certain kinds of lo-fi as I read this, and it had to be in an area that like I could just have my pens and my tabs and just pay attention. So that's probably why it took me so long, because I could only really do it at work. At home it was just too distracting. But it was a very impactful and important read, and ultimately really interesting. So glad I read it. The next read is possibly one of my top books for 2024, and that is the Book of M by Pang Shepard. I read The Cartographers by Pang Shepard and rated it like 3-star, probably 2.5-star. I didn't like it very much. This one, however, was really fun, and I'm so happy. So like I put this on my April TBR because I've had it on my TBR for a while. This was published in 2018, and I got the UK edition specifically because I love the cover, and just kind of held off because I didn't think I was gonna like it, and I was so worried I wasn't gonna like it, or like, even though like the premise of it, I knew I was gonna like it, but like what if I didn't like it as much as I thought I was gonna like it. So anyway, basically this is a dystopian world where it starts off that someone ends up losing their shadow. At first this is considered a miracle, and as more people start losing their shadows completely, like it is still considered miracles of sorts, until people who lose their shadows start losing their memories. And then the world kind of goes into chaos. They don't know how people are losing their shadows, but they are, and they don't know how that's linking to memories, but it is. And so people are dying because they don't remember how to feed themselves, because they don't remember where they live, because they don't remember who's around them, and they feel threatened. Obviously factions start going, shadow people versus non-shadow people. Some people forget how to breathe. Like, it's really kind of intimidating. So we follow multiple perspectives in here, but the main two are Ori and Max, and his wife Max. They are in Virginia when kind of like everything ends up going down, and they kind of just get stuck in Virginia, and they kind of just stay there because like they're aware of the situation, and they kind of just see as it progressively gets worse. And then Max loses her shadow, and out of fear for what she will do to Ori, she leaves, and Ori tries to follow to try to spend as much time with his wife as possible before she forgets. But we are also following two other perspectives, and it kind of just helps expand this world a bit more in terms of how the world worked and continues to work slightly before and after this event has happened or continues to happen. It's really weird. It's a bit magical because there is some elements with the shadow stuff that is not in a synopsis, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but this was really fun, and I really there was elements that yes, I could predict, but I could only predict it so far. So as it was coming to fruition, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Like, it still had, the main thing still kind of happened, but didn't happen in the way I thought it was going to, which was really exciting. So ultimately, I really enjoyed the world building and the characters and just kind of everything. So I'm so happy I enjoyed this book. So I did rate it 5 stars. There were still some elements, despite me enjoying this book, that I didn't like. There were just a couple things, but ultimately really enjoyed. I'm so happy. so happy. Next, I ended up listening to You'd Look Better as a Ghost by Joanna Wallace. This was published in September 2023, but the audiobook wasn't released until this year. So I got this from Libro, and basically we are following a part-time serial killer, Claire, who has her sights now set on Lucas, but as she's planning out Lucas's death, she knows something is wrong. Something's not quite right. And so after Lucas dies, she realizes that someone knows about her her hobby, something that she never really wanted anyone to find out about, but now she's being blackmailed. So this one is interesting. I think it's falling in line with that unhinged woman type theme that seems to be trending right now, except I really didn't like this one. I rated this 2.5 stars, probably just a straight 2-star in all honesty. I found Claire really cynical, which is fine to a point, but this one was to the point where it was just kind of a downer. And there was nothing I liked about anybody in here. It was just kind of not fun to read, really. I wasn't a fan of this one. But I am glad I listened to it, because ultimately this cover kept attracting me. But it makes me worry too about How to Kill Your Family, or other stuff like that. It makes me worry about those because it's in the same vein. I don't know. I would think so. They kind of look similar. But yeah, just ultimately just wasn't a fan of this book. Next, I ended up finishing a book for my 2024, and that is The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Mohammed. This is Premi Mohammed's latest work, and actually this was chosen by me. So most of my 2024 is randomly picked through a random number generator off my Goodreads TBR. But there is 2 books that I can pick that are new releases that are freebies, and 2 picks that are backlists that I can pick that are freebies. And this was one of my newer picks. Purposely put Premi Mohammed on my 2024 because I actually had Migration of Clouds, which is also Primi Mohammed on my 23 of 2023 and didn't like it. Like, ultimately I liked her writing, but I had issue with when I originally read it, I had issue with how long it took me to read it, and thought that that was why I was mad at it. That ultimately it wasn't Migration of Clouds that made me angry, it was how long it took me to read it. But now that I've read The Butcher of the Forest, I am thinking otherwise. I want to reread Migration of Clouds at this point. But The Butcher of the Forest, we're following Varys, who is basically dragged to the tyrant's castle and told that she has to go into the northern forest to retrieve his children. No one goes into the northern forest because no one returns. All the locals know this, except the only one that's has ever returned is Varys. So the tyrant sends her back in to retrieve his children. Primi Mohammed's writing is very descriptive. It's very much, I love the world building of it, and I like how descriptive it can be, but it sometimes is almost too descriptive, where I started skim reading, and there were elements of her descriptions that I ended up just going, oh my god, like, I have to reread that. I don't understand what that was, or like for some reason it just didn't click and it went completely over my head. So I don't know. Ultimately I did enjoy this one, but because of the feelings I had, it makes me wonder, like, if it wasn't all just me for the Migration of Clouds. Ultimately did enjoy this. Felt like it was a very unsatisfying ending. Really, ultimately, like, love the cover, was a decent enough read. I'll keep this, but it did, for how small it was, it did take me 5 days. Take that with a grain of salt. I read a lot slower than I listen to books, so. And then the last book that I read for the month of April was House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is another 24 of 2024 read that I got done, so yay, I think I'm on track at this point. But this one, we are following Iris Hollow, who is the youngest Hollow sister. Her older sisters, Gray and Vivi, have basically are out of the house. They left the house before they graduated high school. Gray is now a supermodel, and Vivi is a punk rock star. So, but there's something interesting about the Hollow sisters in that they are very odd. Something happened to them when they were children. They were missing for a month, only to come back, and they came back like completely naked, not remembering where they went or who they were, and like their hair changed, and like there was something odd that happened. Hold on, let me read the synopsis so I make sure that like I'm not giving anything away. 17-year-old Iris Hollow has always been strange. Something happened to her and her two older sisters when they were children. Something they can't quite remember, but that left each of them with an identical half-moon scar at the base of their throats. Iris has spent most of her teenage years trying to avoid the weirdness that sticks to her like tar. But when her eldest sister, Gray, goes missing under suspicious circumstances, Iris learns just how weird her life can get. Horned men start shadowing her, a corpse falls out of her sister's ceiling, and ugly, impossible memories start to twist their way to the forefront of her mind. As Iris retraces Gray's last known footsteps and follows the increasingly bizarre trail of breadcrumbs she left behind, it becomes apparent that the only way to save her sister is to decipher the mystery of what happened to them as children. Again, I really like the description. I guess this is another book that another author that I really liked the description of what she did within the book. It was very world building. I really enjoyed it. I like the magic elements in here. It was very much like very nature with the rot. So I feel like the cover doesn't quite do it justice in terms of, it doesn't do it justice, mostly because like it's blooming out of her face, right, even though there's blood. I think it could have gone for a more wilty look, unless it was like particularly your corpse flower. So I don't know, it was this just my being nitpicky, I guess. But ultimately I enjoyed the narrator. who I'll have here because I don't remember their name. But what bugged me, and I think this is not just the narrator's fault, but also Crystal Sutherland's, is that Iris, when alone, was fine. But when her sisters were near, it was like she became younger. Not only with the tonality of the voice, so not only with the voice narrator of the book, but also it seemed with the writing, in terms she seemed meeker or didn't trust herself very well anytime her sisters were near. Maybe that was a part of it, but I didn't like it. It made me not like Iris. I did, like I said, enjoy for the most part, the voice narrator of this book. I thought it was her voices, particularly when it came to, what was their name, Agatha, was really creepy, and really enjoyed it. It was very much like this whisper, like creepy child whisper it was great. And the story itself was interesting. It was a little disappointing to me. Not sure where it was going, but I didn't really necessarily like where it went, if that makes sense. So what did I rate this? I think I rated it a 3. I rated it a 3. Like, I have heard good things about it. I'm glad I read it because this makes me even more excited to get into Invocations by Crystal Sutherland, to see if I like other works from her. Because ultimately I did enjoy the descriptive writing and the world building that she had within the House of Hollow, but I think her characters could use some work. So yeah, those are the books that I read for the month of April. If you read any of them, let me know your thoughts. Otherwise, I feel like I've been talking forever, so thank you so much for bearing with me. If you don't have the spoons to answer the question, let's go ahead and put the wilted flower emoji. Otherwise, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and like the video or subscribe if you have yet to do so. And yeah, I'll see you in another video very soon. Cheers.